It is always interesting to me to take a look and to see what people are excited about. What is the current spirit of the age? What are the things that we are looking to? What do we think the future will hold? And to let that drop in the air and for you to think about it and for us to interact, I think that a fair amount of the people who are considering that at this point in time might say that the headlines are ringing with excitement over artificial intelligence. I think a lot of people are looking at this and are going, the future is AI. And in terms of this, there are multiple different parts of what is called artificial intelligence. But a fair amount of what is artificial intelligence at this point in time comes down to the harvesting of massive amounts of culture and the databasing of massive amounts of culture, and it can be an area of culture that's limited, such as with medicine, and you can make an artificial intelligence database that knows everything that we can throw into it for medicine. You can make an artificial intelligence database that knows everything that we know about classical literature. You can make an artificial intelligence database that might know everything that we know about music of that last 100 or 200 years. And you could load in everything from rap to classical to jazz to experimental music to rock and roll to country to disco to all sorts of different genres, punk, new wave, progressive rock, all the rest of these things. You can put all of these things together and have a database of that, and then have your artificial intelligence process whatever you've given it, and then have a musical opinion when you ask it about something. But artificial intelligence is the attempt of humanity to create something. And I look at artificial intelligence and I look at that and compare it to humanity. And here are 2 or 3 thoughts. I am not condemning technology because technology is technology. I do believe that when a being, and we're familiar with humans more than we're familiar with anything else, but if humans create something, we will put our own brilliance into the thing that we create, but we'll also put our own sinfulness into the thing that we create. Because honestly, the vast majority of us are blind to our own avarice, selfishness, weakness, and other things. So what we create will reflect us in some way, shape, or form. I think artificial intelligence is doing that. I think likewise, when someone is creating something, it is very tempting for them to take that which is not theirs. And I think that one of the things that if you look up artificial intelligence copyright infringement, you will find a great deal of things going on where people who are creating artificial intelligence are trying to use the culture of other people. And as Western societies have set up copyright offices, a lot of the things that we enjoy and that we cherish and that we purchase or that we reference at a library or otherwise make use of are pieces of intellectual property that belong to other people. And artificial intelligence and those creating it might go, what we're doing is so good and so wonderful and so effective and so important for humanity that we're allowed to take what you have put together and not compensate you for it and make use of it. The courts will end up being involved with this and will work on this for years and decades potentially to come, trying to figure out who owns what and who can use what and how things can be contributed to the most extraordinary Encyclopedia Britannica of culture that the earth has ever seen. The other thing that happens is as people all get together and they focus on, we will build this one thing that is amazing, it reminds me of the Tower of Babel. And the Tower of Babel is in Genesis, where humanity has a common and a single language. They have taken a plane, a flat piece of ground, where they can build a city that is without limitation, considering the population of its time, where everybody can live together. They're going to build a ziggurat, or a temple that is going to reach the sky. And a ziggurat is not exactly like a pyramid, but similar to a pyramid. And so they're building this temple. They are all coming together. They are all building a world that has no frame and no reference to who God is. And God sees what they're doing, and it appears that God says if they do this, there's nothing they won't be able to do. But the backside of the sin, the fascism, the treachery, the other things that are going on are such that God determines that it is better to divide people into cultures, societies, and multiple languages than it is for them to continue to be able to be unified in a fashion where they follow this worldview that will become a horror. I wonder if there's going to be any similarity between the Tower of Babel, the empires like Assyria and Babylon and Egypt. I wonder if that which is imperfect in us is going to end up being expressed through the artificial intelligence that we create. I wonder if there's things that are spiritually broken in humanity that are going to manifest through artificial intelligence. And if you were looking for me to end up coming through and giving you answers on everything, my profoundest apologies, because as I'm thinking about this, I'm thinking more and more and coming up with more and more questions. I think this is going to be significant to human history. I think the God of the Bible has anticipated this. I think that there may end up being hooks and even portals for things to come through that we're not expecting. I think that as the most wealthy are becoming more and more detached from human society, that they're creating servants that they have no responsibility to, like artificial intelligence, might end up being a situation that causes us pain and suffering, because those very same people who are the captains of our society and who are the economic rulers of the planet may end up not having any use for people like us. They may end up seeing us as no more than slaves just as they see their artificial intelligence farms as a form of plantation as well. I know that for artificial intelligence and to run these things, it's going to end up taking massive amounts of power. I'm seeing people talking about wanting to have nuclear power again to run artificial intelligence farms. So great is going to be the amount of power that is going to be necessary to run these new plantations. You are living in times that are uncharted. You are living in times where new things are happening. But it is also fascinating to me that Yeshua, when he was talking about his second coming, his return to earth, his establishing his kingdom for 1,000 years here on earth, and that transitioning into humanity that loves him being with him forever. He said, as it was in the time of Noah, so it will be in the time of the Son of Man's return. And we have in Genesis a recognition of humanity being very prolific and very technological, very industrial, and very effective shortly before the flood that destroyed all of that human culture and made space for a new human culture that for Noah and his family, they would start a new society that was centered around the Lord. And there's some wild things in Genesis. I'm not going to get into all of them, but was a sense that it talks about Noah as of being of a pure bloodline and a pure race. And biblical scholars fight pretty seriously about what Noah being a pure man of his race or of his bloodline meant. And the question for modern people is, does that mean that the rest of the bloodline of the people who were destroyed was corrupted, perverted, or otherwise harmed in such a fashion whereby it couldn't be brought back? Don't know. But I do know that in our era and in our time, artificial intelligence is a big deal. Biotech is a big deal. DNA sequencing is a big deal. Medicines that are very powerful that can cure all sorts of things are on the horizon. There is also experiment being done in terms of cloning animals and gene splicing and trying to figure out how to do other things that we don't know how that's going to work out. But if there was ever a time that was not unlike the time of Noah before the flood, you might be living in it. And if that's the case, you might also be living in the era and the time in which the coming of the Son of Man might be close at hand. Shalom.